Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the IT directors meeting. We have few of our attendees online as well. If you can put in your name as well as the district that you're representing, that would be helpful when if there are any questions that come across our way from you. And also, if you can let us know in the chat whether you can hear me properly, that would be very helpful.
Susan says yes.
Yes? Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much, Susan. My name is Satish Patisapu, and I'm the Deputy CIO at the Department of Education. I've been working here for almost 6 years, and as part of this transformation journey of a lot of systems, mainly the AZE's application per se. Go into the next slide.
Let me make sure the slides are up.
We have a few items that we are going to cover, and these items have been given to us by the community to give you updates, and also provide any feedback on if at all there was an item such as whatever is going on ADE Connect or AZs on what we have been improving. And having said that, this is a 3-hour-long meeting, and we are not planning on having that 3-hour-long at a stretch. There will be breaks in between. And also, it is not that all the presenters are going to just speak. We really want some feedback from you. With the feedback only, we can mutually benefit by working together. And that is one of the main reasons why we requested for the topics to be discussed here. And as such, we prepared this whole slide deck for you. And more importantly, I think last time there was a question, or last time or the one previous, about the slide deck. We are going to send this slide deck to everyone, whoever has signed up for it, or maybe put it online somewhere so that it can be downloaded, so that if there are any further questions, you can send us feedback. Okay? With that said, I
would skip to Robert.
I would. The way we organized it is to have speakers at a specific time frame, and they will talk about it. It looks like our first speaker is probably on the way, but I wouldn't wait for it. I would like to call upon Robert Callahan, our Head of Production Services, to come up and speak about the cybersecurity updates.
So, Robert, I'm going to have a 3-second interview. I don't know, my name is Mark Masterson, and I'm the CIO. This is an important topic for you. If you didn't watch legislative this year, this almost got to pass, that the ADE was going to be responsible for all your security. I don't know how it got that way, but the perception is that what you guys do is not secure enough. I don't make these policies, this is the legislature. So it's really important as you pay attention, Robert, because I shouldn't be in charge of your security. I don't want that job, and they won't give me any money anyway. So it just means more work, and no, I can't manage 664 LEA's security. But if somebody's got noise that the legislature thinks that there's huge vulnerabilities, and maybe it's a vendor telling them there is, I have no idea how that works over there. I probably have more idea than most of you do, but that's how it works. Some vendor either told them or some lobbyist told them. There's state killed it. Doesn't mean
reason I'm lifting their presentation is because of security initiatives that they are going to enterprise. The department here is actually going to leverage those 16. It's actually 20 different security controls. But with those 20 controls, and really it's 16 controls that get you 20 in benefit, the NIST has said that essentially you will eliminate 90% of the risk and exposure. So that's a very significant amount of deterrent that we can affect for a number of, less than 24 rules, essentially. So to get you into the mindset of what we're dealing with, the first slide is who are the bad guys? And that is who are the people that we have to protect ourselves against. So the company Narus is a big data company that does a lot of analytics in cyber security. They crunched a bunch of numbers together, and they came up with some categories of who these different types of bad guys are and their different motivations. So we have, your cyber criminals for hire, essentially, and they sell these things out on the dark web, and people purchase them and do all kinds of nefarious things like fraudulent transactions in your accounts and identity theft and things like that. So cyber warriors, that would be like a Russian hacking group that's sponsored by the state, for instance. They are paid to perform, essentially attack targets, perhaps in the US, perhaps somewhere else that's an enemy of whatever country, state they're in. Principal idealists, this is your people that go out and protest and do these other things that are very active in their community. They want to affect change, and they do it in whatever way they can affect a media storm. And obviously a big data breach would be a media storm for any corporation or us. Malicious insiders, and the insider threat can't be underestimated. There's no true number that is accurate, but I would believe the numbers that say about 70 to 80% of all cyber breaches are occurring because of insider information. So it's the people inside just as much that we trust as the people outside that we don't trust that are actually causing us problems here. And then the nationalists. These are the people that are inside the United States that, the 17-year-old that got a trove of scripts that he's going to execute against the Department of Defense today and see what he can bring down or see how fast the FBI will show up at his doorstep. So these have a wide range of reasons why they might be wanting or motivated to attack you. The reality is it doesn't really matter why they're attacking you, because if they're successful, they're successful. And the next slide goes into a little bit about how they do it. So we've got these people out there that are skilled. Perhaps they were in IT for a number of years and then are now unemployed. It's very hard to say, but the tactics that they use are very, very standard. SQL injection that involves applications retrieving data from a database, and people will give the URL that they put in and they will malform it so that it does something bad. And I'm trying to keep this at a very high level so it's not very technical. If I get too technical, please just raise your hand and I'll kind of back off a little bit. But, so that's a SQL injection. It's telling the database to do something that it's not supposed to be doing, and it can bypass its normal security controls as a result of being tricked. Obviously, that's a very dangerous thing to happen, and there's a lot of patching that goes on to prevent that. Botnets. Botnets are large distributed networks of systems that are controlled by another entity. So if I wanted to attack Amazon, for instance, I might go get myself a botnet with a couple 100,000 compromised workstations out there, and I might send them all a signal at the same time to go attack at Amazon and just essentially flood their network or shut their ports down. And there was a successful attack on Amazon recently. So it's not out of the realm of reality that this kind of thing can happen. Phishing. This is the one that we tend to deal with the most. There's also spear phishing, which is a targeted phishing attack. But the nature of these attacks is tricking your users into behaviors that they think are safe or normal, typically through email and bad links. And what happens is they click on the link and it takes them to a bad site. The bad site then infects their system. Then they become a bot on my botnet, and I go hire them for malfeasance. Infected websites. This is something that the phishing email might want to use. It basically is it's a way of taking you to a site that you wouldn't normally go to. It may trick you and look like the original site, but have, instead of .com, it may say .co or something at the end. It's just slightly different. So it's an awareness thing. You need to be very careful and aware of what you're opening. Tell your users that, and I'm sure, practice safe computing is, on everybody's mantra here. So one of the things that's really bad about these infected websites is this exfiltration of data. And what that means is they're taking the data out. That's the compromised data breach that you hear about in the papers, in the newspaper, in the TV. That's what we really want to avoid top of anything. You can deal with other attacks, but once the data's out, the genie's out of the bottle. And so let's go into the next slide, and I'll.
1 second.
Oh.
I just want to emphasize something. So when I arrived here, we were 500,000 patches out of date.
Mark, you need to be louder so they can hear.
Okay. I'll repeat. Thank you. When I arrived here, we were 500,000 patches out of date. Without patching your systems, this is real. And I'm not trying to scare you, but what scares me at night is somebody taking over my website or somebody taking over our data. Because who's the first person that's going to get fired? Me. Because it's my responsibility. And Sony, the CIO, was fired the next day. Did he have anything to do with patching? No. So whoever's in your organization is doing this, the purpose of this is for you to go back and make sure that you have the processes and procedures to protect your boss. Because at the end of the day, you're protecting yourself. Because in IT, they don't blame IT until something goes wrong. And then it's always IT's fault. So I really, if I wanted to leave something in your mind about this, it's really important. Security today is it's scary. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I actually had on another slide that I ended up pulling from this deck was the Yahoo breach and the extent of that, the FBI breach. There's been a number of target.
Office of Personnel Management.
Yeah.
I was breached. I was one of those top secret people that had everything about me was stolen from the Office of Personnel Management. I have all kinds of things watching me now that the feds are paying for. If you can breach that, how easy do you think it is to breach your school? I'm just saying.
And these threats are real. We are under attack, and this is just the ADOA numbers. Cyber investigations, they're doing 15 a day. Trojan attempts, 3,000 a day. SQL injection, 50 a day. This is the ones they're catching. Spam, over 100,000 emails a day, per day. Garbage email. Web activity, 8.3 megs per month. 8.3 million per month. So there's a lot of activity that they're watching. But there's a lot of activity that's bad too. And this is real numbers from our agencies here in the state. So y'all are part of this. We're all in this together, and communication is, sharing of that information is very, very important to security. Going forward, when we have events, that transparency, we share that information with ADOA. We'll share it with the FBI if necessary, and other entities so that they can draw bigger conclusions about what is actually happening. When you look at things very specifically, you may not get that overall big picture of, well, Is this North Korea that's attacking us today, or is it Johnny down on the street corner? So, if you go to the next slide, please. So here's some examples of specific states and some of the bad things that have happened. This is my fear, uncertainty, and doubt slide that kind of hopefully wakes everybody up to why they want to go home and not sleep tonight. 1.3 million records in Montana, $250,000 loss. I think they got off easy. Utah, 280,000 records with 3.2 million. And South Carolina with a $27 million loss on 3.2 million records. I don't know how many records you have in your district over the last 12 years of students, but it's probably more than you realize, or it's probably a pretty good number. Think about that, and each of those records representing between $100 and $500, because that's what it's going to cost you if they're breached. Typically, it's going to cost you about $200. That's gone up over the last 2 years, every year consistently. It's now about $240.
So why would they want student records? Why do you think hackers would want them? Does anybody here have an idea? Identity. How many parents check the identity of their kids? When do they find out they've been breached? When they apply for credit when they're 19. You've got the most vulnerable people in your schools, and they have no clue. The average parent, do they think like this? I do, but the average parent doesn't. And those kids, they could have their data and they could have credit cards in a heartbeat. The old way they did it was through the death certificates, right? There was no cross check. You died. So that'd be an identity. That was in the old days. Nowadays, you just need kids' data, because kids' data nobody's going to check. They could be selling, they could be cashing them out, and we don't know. And the only ones that would know is if the parents check it. But when they find out that they were hacked, who are they going to blame? Because we don't have it. I mean, we have super-sized security here. That's why I have Robert. We spend $25,000 per pen test, which is the penetration testing. $25,000 per application. That's expensive stuff.
That's with 2 tests.
Yeah, and you got to do it all the time. And I know you guys don't have that, but that's what you should be telling the legislatures that you need. If they want security for you, you got to have that kind of capability.
And I just want to add something real quick. Paul from ASDB added an example here a little closer to home and mentioned that ASC recently had a data breach as well. So it's not these faraway states.
Oh, my next slide will bring it home.
Sorry.
We have Maricopa on there. Yeah. So we can go to the next slide. One of the newest tactics that they're using now is ransomware or cryptoware. You may have heard of this. Essentially, it locks your system, locks your data, and then they give you a ransom note of please send $100,000 or $1 million or whatever they decide they want to send. And then if you send it, they may or may not unlock your data for you. So it's not a good situation. You've lost control at that point. So here's an example that's a little closer to home. Maricopa Community Colleges, 2 million records. SSN and banking info, $26 million. That's a lot. So I'm not going to just pound you with a bunch of other examples, but you can see there ranging in 27 million, 4 million, 250,000. These guys got off very, very easy. 250,000. Cost per record, I mean, very, very low for them. I don't know why. Maybe they had minimal exposure. But so you can see this is a problem for everyone. What generates this is the information. And here's just some examples of how crime can pay and why the criminals are motivated. I've even heard recently and read some articles about nation states that are essentially doing bank fraud type hacks in order to fund their own organizations. their countries, if you will. I don't know the validity of it, but I did read a report yesterday or day before about North Korea stealing $81 million from us. So I don't know if it's true. You hear these days. But you can see a Social Security number is worth up to $250 for somebody. You can do a lot of damage with a Social Security number and an address these days. Bank accounts, $40 to $500. You know, if you have a couple thousand in there, it's a good investment for you. You might double or triple your money. Not that I want you all to go out and start being hackers, but this is, you know, this is what motivates these people. It's big business. They're very organized. 2010 was a watershed year for security in terms of the criminals really got organized. And what I mean by that is they took a very corporate type approach to it. They became much more organized, much more mature, if you would. From a corporate maturity model, they probably progressed from a 2 to a 4. They're very, very well organized, well run. They have distinct processes in place and such that allow them to be very effective. And they're probably more well-funded and better organized than we are at protecting. I'm not saying just because they make the money doing it. So in our response to this, and this is the security controls is what I'm going to come back to, and this is how we're going to protect ourselves going forward. These are our top 20 critical security controls that have been identified by ADE. I'm working with them. We've already implemented a number of these on our own. This is just our agency, and we're looking at, you know, where we're at on our timeline for implementing all of these. All of these controls we are planning on implementing. They're all best practice. I recommend every single one of them. And when you look at approaches to security, it's an iterative approach. It's continuous improvement. You're never going to get a benchmark and get a trophy and be able to put it on the shelf and say, I'm secure, and so I'm going to stay secure. You may be partly secure at a point in time, and tomorrow it's going to all change. So you've got to adapt continuously to that threat. You've got to assess your own organization and respond to the changes in the environment. So to do this, we've got these 20 different controls. You can see some are green, some are yellow, some are red. These are prioritized for us. We've gone through, and risk register is very helpful in assessing your risk analysis. The way you want to approach this is you want to get the most value out of your buck and your efforts. So you're going to protect the most that you can protect with as quickly as possible, obviously. And some of the ones that are less important, you may push off to a later point in time. But that's all based on your analysis. And I recommend you do a risk register. If you need help with any of these things, I can send you guys some links after this. Please, my link is on the slide deck as well. You can reach out to me directly and I'll provide you with some materials. But I'm not going to go into every single one of these, but these are the 20 NIST controls, and I'd recommend that you guys review those as well. You know, they cover everything from your inventory to firewalls, content, data loss prevention. It's important to understand that these things come back into effective policies, and then these policies become procedures. And I was preparing some stuff for acceptable use as well, so I'm bleeding over a little bit because they're both in security. But let me focus on my controls. If we go to the next slide, you'll see these laid out a little bit more organized and easier to read. So everything from data loss prevention, denial of service prevention, penetration testing, vulnerability, directory audit tool. This is something that I think that you guys probably need the most help with, just because of the amount of personnel that change through your organization on a year-by-year basis. What I find is accounts tend to get crufty, if you will, or there's a lot of extra ones that are assigned still that maybe that person's not here anymore and they're in a group and so forth. So it's important that we review these things and attest on a regular basis that this is a good list for access controls. And this comes down to those procedures that you need to be able to put in place that mimic your policies and implement them for the actual tactical day-to-day stuff that your people are going to be doing. So I'm not going to pound you with every single one of these, but you know, it's very, very comprehensive from the endpoints to the servers to different practices as well. So you know, monitoring, for instance, how do you know if you're breached? You have to be able to detect so that you can prevent it.
So does anybody have any questions so far? Done one way.
I've got just another like 2 minutes maybe, or maybe 1 minute. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you how we track it. This is what's called a SIEM tool. This is for Security Information Management. And what this does, this one is RiskSense, the one that the state uses. And we report all of these up to Governor Ducey, actually. These numbers are valid live numbers. What this does is it tracks the vulnerabilities across your different types of hosts, whether they're a low risk, high risk, or mid risk. And it detects the applicability of that vulnerability to be exploited. And comes up with a risk sense score, and then that score gets transmitted up, and we're always looking to be in the green. Right now we're in the yellow. So we've either got some patching to do or some other practice. Yes?
So I presume this is pulling, do you have a client on all of your endpoints that's feeding this?
This is actually this is a scan. So
Okay.
this is what it looks like actually to an attacker.
Okay, from internally or externally?
This one is done externally.
How is it getting to all of your endpoint clients from external?
We specify the range and we open a particular port for directed host.
Oh, okay, so you're pushing through, okay.
Yeah.
And it's pulling just, then why is your 138 days so high? I mean, are you guys that behind on your patches? Like, that seems extraordinarily high for a...
There's
Or
a
am
number
I
of reasons.
missing
We have some
something?
exclusions that we have to put in that are manually done that we have not done yet on some old legacy systems.
Okay, I'm just curious.
So that's why.
Okay.
It's that number is it's for us to track,
Mhm.
and that's why we're tracking it. It's not a good number, but it's a tracking number for us.
Pure curiosity.
So let's give you an example of real, you all deal with common law. That is red. It will be sunsetted this year. I mean, we have legacy stuff that we've not taken to the next level, which is still out there. But AZs and Dash, AD Connect are tight and are secure. But it's like, I wish I had a wand that we could fix all these things, but we have 200 and some systems. And we have our internal people. Who's your biggest enemy? Internal. CFO. Why would the CFO? They send a personal letter to these hackers, to that CFO because they know on your website, and ask him to open this up, and boom, it implants a bot right on his system. Yes.
So the 1255 exploitable hosts, though, if you're just talking big systems, that would be a much smaller number because that would just be the servers that are running these systems. You're talking about endpoint clients that are running those legacy systems still on your network? how does
This
that
number
mean-
is not an actual number of physical hosts. The
Okay.
way RiskSense looks at risk and categorizes it, it's really more of an exploitable port. So it's
Lot
a
more ports than there are
service
hosts.
running on a computer. There could be 10 websites running on one computer, and it would show as 10 hosts.
Okay, how does that determine that it's exploitable? Is it using a database
No,
of
because it's
known exploits, or how
because
is
it's
it?
accessible. It's classified as exploitable. It's reachable.
So it would, so I have a web server running whatever. Would that classify that as exploitable, even though it's a
Yeah.
perfectly secured web server?
Mhm. Because if it were not secured, it would be exploitable.
Even though you think and let me tell you.
But I'm just trying to understand how this thing is quantifying the data. We can take this offline later. I don't want to
Okay,
derail the whole
that's
thing.
fine.
I'm just
We-
kind of curious
we're
how this is
you
working.
know, we work with the CEO of this company
So
directly.
it sounds like an awesome product.
Yeah,
I just want to
it's-
understand where the data is coming from.
So exploitable means it exists and it could be a target.
Yes, that's a potential target for hacking.
Okay.
That's just the way that they look at it. That's
Gotcha.
their proprietary way of
Okay.
looking at it. May not be proprietary, but we can talk more about it.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Are there any other questions? I think I've probably overstayed my welcome by a couple minutes. All right. If no,
Actually, sorry, not to go completely off base, but just from a, so we've been, I think as most school districts have, been making a really deliberate effort to focus on security and focus on tightening up our policies and procedures. But just, it's been very, very helpful if there's any way to get more funding to help support some of these initiatives, especially things that we just had to, we had sonic walls and all of our systems, as you know, they got bought out, which means that they're basically it's a dead product. And ripping all those out, replacing them all with brand new Cisco has been extraordinarily expensive and very much a tightening of the belt. So if there's any way we can get some extra funding to help fund these security initiatives, it's something that would be significantly helpful.
have you talked to my E-rate man?
The
Marlon?
firewalls aren't under E-rate.
Oh, sorry.
E-rate is only telecommunications, unfortunately. So
All
if we
right,
could
I
have
thought
any
it had some
basic-
school infrastructure in it as
No,
well.
unfortunately not.
I can't help you with
I know.
money.
But if you're having coffee with someone
Save that
can,
question
if
for
you could
Milan.
drop that, that'd be fantastic. All
Yeah, so-
Could you say that?
right.
yeah, do-
So there was a bill being proposed that would require the state of Arizona to provide security to all endpoints in school districts. Not only just the security, but all the way down to the single sign-on. That got killed, so you don't have to worry about it. But I don't know how it even got started. It's not like I went over there and asked them to do this. So it may come back again. It's just for you guys to pay attention to. Last thing I want to do is manage 664 LEAs security. That would be very hard.
Thank you.
I think I'm done.
Thank you, Robert. Quickly, the next presenter is going to speak about an enhancement of an existing product. And the reason for the enhancement is because of the feedback that we have from the field, and intricacies in using. Few seconds before he starts. What I wanted to mention was forgot to talk about the restrooms and stuff like that. If anybody wants to use them, they're right, past the hallway, and it's right opposite to the elevators. So, and then again, thank you for the questions online. Please let us know what your thoughts are. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in, and we will address them as we go forward. Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you. So as Satish mentioned, my name is Jeff Powell. I'm the project manager for what we call the entity administration application. I think I have probably the best time here today because I'm excited about this product. Based on the user feedback we've gotten, everyone who's seen this product is excited about it. I'm not sure if some of you in this room have gotten a chance to see it, but that's why I want to show it to you here today. And so it's just about to be live. We had a huge response. We actually sent an email out at the end of last week and said, who wants first crack at getting into this new application? We had an overwhelming response. If you online or if you in this room are part of that group and you reached out and said, yes, enthusiastically so, I would love to get a sneak peek, then I should be reaching out to you tomorrow and I'll have some information for you as to how you would actually get into the new application. You'd be the first person to use it. I hope you are picking up on my excitement because every time anybody's gotten to see this application so far, they've said, get this to us as fast as you can because you heard us and we want it. And so I'm really excited to show you what it looks like I'll talk to you. It's going to be a little bit of an overview. It's going to be a little bit of a kind of a step-by-step. Are any of you, you won't be able to show me your hand online, but maybe you can let Sherilyn know if you're an entity administrator in terms of being in the room. So we have at least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 entity administrators. That's fantastic. So I'm hoping that this is really useful because I'll kind of step you through what does it look like, how does it help make your job easier. That's really what this is about. So this is what the application looks like. You can see it's called ADE administration as much as possible, and I'm up here today, and I feel honored to be here. The team that sits behind me, so it sounds like 2 entity administrators online. Thank you guys for being here. The team that built this is really 3 now. So I'm up here, but really the credit goes to them. The credit goes to the entity administrators who provided us feedback. So everybody who participated in UAT, thank you. Everybody who came up and talked to us at the last 2 Ask Us meetings where we presented, thank you guys as well. Anybody who provided any feedback to ADE support over the maybe the last 5 years, it all got documented. We were here listening to you, and we believe that we have incorporated I keep saying perhaps as high as 99% of what it was that you asked for is built into this new app, and I'm really proud to be able to say that. So here it is. It's clean. It's easy to use. We refer to this as the landing page. The primary action that you're going to perform in this application, entity administration, is user management, and you can see we kind of direct you right to it. I do want to take a quick step back, and I want to say, so kind of at a high level before we even get into the app itself and what you do in the app, what were the major concerns that ADE administrators always shared? And so I made sure to write them down. I do want to walk through each one of those. The very first concern was always, I have Firefox and I like to use Firefox. I can't use it, I'm unhappy. I have Safari and I like to use Safari. I can't use it, I'm unhappy. I have Chrome and I'd like to use it was IE compatible. So we did built in cross-browser compatibility. All of the browsers I just spoke about, we support it. We made sure that we covered all of the most recent versions. We tested it in all manner of different platforms, and so I don't know if there are any administrators who actually use it on a tablet, but we tested it on a tablet. If for whatever reason we missed your specific device and you come back and say, hey, I'd love to use it, I would not recommend using it on your iPhone because there's just, I'll show you, there's so much that you need to be able to do in this app. It's far more powerful, tablet and above, but definitely one thing I do want to share is if we missed a browser, let us know. At the end of this, I'll actually show how we're collecting that feedback. If we missed a device, let us know and we'll see what we can do, but I'm really excited about cross-browser compatibility. I hope you guys are too. The next item was, why do we do something in this application and then have to wait for the action to actually affect that user? We heard you, we called it the sync. It had to wait for a lot of different databases to sync up. We eliminated that. So now if you make a change to a user and you say, I want this user to have access to a particular application, the user is going to have immediate access to that application. It's that simple. So real-time updates is the bullet point there. So we know there are times of year where you onboard lots of users. And one of the things that was true about entity administration up to this point was you would go in user by user. And so you'd set up one user, you'd go to the next user, you go to the next user. We built in what we call bulk creation of accounts. So if you have 10 people, you can add all 10 people at once. It's that simple. The next thing that we heard was I have lots of different application roles that I want to assign to a particular user. I want to assign it across multiple schools. I can't do it right now. I go kind of school by school, user by user, role by role. So we built in what we're calling bulk application role assignments. So you can add a whole lot of roles to a whole lot of users at once. You can remove a whole lot of roles from a whole lot of users at once. We think that you guys are going to be excited by that. And then the last thing that's kind of at a very high level is we had always said, we being ADE, you should go through, it's on the subject of security, very much so. So if you have users that are no longer part of your organization, you should clean them out. They shouldn't have ADE Connect roles. We built into this application what we refer to as a one-step process to remove ADE Connect user relationships. So in other words, if there's a user who was in your organization and should no longer be part of your organization, one-step removal. If they were part of one school and they moved to another school, it's one-step removal from the first school and quick addition to the second school. So those are the high level points. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of step through the app. This very next slide is actually, I think, also really exciting. So when you first go, and so if you're part of our sneak peek group and you get into the app later this week, the very first thing that you're going to run into is this training page before you even get to the landing page. And the reason behind this is one of the things that we noticed was entity administrators consistently called up and said, I really want to do something, but I need more support in doing it. How do I do it? And this is our way of really responding to that. So this very first, and you can see there's actually going to be 5 videos. The longest of the videos is 4 minutes. The shortest of the videos is 2 minutes. You will have to watch those training videos the very first time that you access the app. So again, 5 videos, longest is 4 minutes. I guarantee you that you're going to enjoy them. We spent a lot of time making sure that it had the best type of content. They're easy to use. They really do a nice job of walking you through the app. But I do want to stress, so the very first time you go in, and this really was meant for entity administrators, we want to make your experience in this app as good as it can possibly be. It is very different from the application that you have been using, and this was really the best way that we could support you on day one. As soon as you are done watching these videos, we feel confident that you'll be able to forget all about the application that has existed, and you'll be able to immediately use this for the management of your users in terms of their ADE Connect roles. So it's really designed to make your life easier. Watch the videos. Reach out to me. Again, my name is Jeff Powell. There's a way that you can provide feedback. If you find it the worst experience in the world, I want to know, but I'm hoping I'm actually going to hear from a lot of you that you'll come back and say, you know what, actually they were really useful. Thank you. That's what I'm hoping for. So the next thing is, as soon as you watch those videos, you'll automatically redirect. So here we are back at the entity administration landing page. I'm just going to point out a couple of things here. We did not take away any functionality that you enjoyed in the app that you're using today. So it's only additions to, are we okay?
Yeah.
So it's only additions. So there are some reports, so I'll just kind of point you out here. Any of the reports that you currently exist, you can still access. Some of the stuff that's new, and I'll actually show you what each of these items is in a moment, but you can still access all of the help content, and so there are quick reference guides. The old quick reference guides are obviously out of date because we have a new app, so we have new quick reference guides. All of the videos, should you really like the 5 videos, should you want to point them out to anybody else, you can always refer to them through. It's always there. You can always access any of the content. It gets updated regularly, so if there's new content, it'll get pushed there. You can always get back to ADE Connect. You can always contact ADE support. If you really wanted to tweet ADE, you can. If you want to join us on Facebook, you can do all those things too. But let me really get into this, because this is really what matters. So it's why do you use entity administration? You want to manage your users. They need to have access to ADE applications. They need to have ADE Connect application roles. So let's go ahead and go into the user management page. And it's the next slide. So if I click there, it's going to redirect me to this page. There's a lot going on in this page, so I've actually collapsed it for you to really fit into the slide. I know if you're here in the room, you have access to the deck in front of you. I assume if you're watching online, you have access to it too. Soon you'll have access to it for real, but here we are. This is really the nuts and bolts of this application. Something that's brand new, it's not something that you guys have been exposed to before, is this idea of a parent entity and a related organization. We tried to be forward thinking with this app, and there's more than just districts and schools. And so to really make it fit any type of LEA, we coined this term parent entity, but for the purposes of an example, I'm going to say that's like a district, and a related org is like a school. And so I have, you'll actually notice in all the training videos, and then even here in the slide, we picked Chandler Unified. Do we have Chandler represented here today by any chance? So thank you. In absentia, you gave us permission, and I hope that's all right. But so we did use Chandler. Are you Tommy Callahan? I don't know who. No. Okay. No. So I don't know if that's a real user, but actually most of them are not. You'll see like Donald Duck in here. You'll see lots of kind of fake users because this is not our production environment. But if Chandler Unified School District is the parent entity, and then think of, so Chandler, I think you have 95 related organizations, to use the terminology of entity administration. So think 95 schools. So there are going to be some number of users that I want to manage at the parent entity level. I'll stay on parent entity view. And so let's say it's somebody I'm adding to my district office, I'll stay on parent entity level. If it's a teacher that I need to add to one of my 95 schools or related organizations, I'll switch to related organizations view. The page operates the same regardless of which view you're on. It's going to be a list of users. It's going to show you any of the changes that you make for any of those users in the application. That's what this user change log here is at the bottom. So if I'm on my parent entity view for Chandler Unified School District, first of all, don't be alarmed that there are many fewer people shown here because I collapsed it. This will actually reflect the real operational reality in Chandler when you go into the application on day one. What are you going to do in the app? The very first thing I'll show you, and then we'll come back to this page, is I want to add users. So it's the first day of school. Let me go ahead and add 3 people in this particular example. So next slide, I click add users, and I say I want to add 3 users to somewhere in Chandler. And maybe I was on the parent entity view when I started, but I changed my mind. I actually want to add them at the parent entity, Chandler Unified, and then at some of the schools. And you can see here it's as simple as saying, okay, well, here's my drop down. Where do you want to add these users? Do you want to add them just at the parent entity? Do you want to add them at any of the related organizations? You can search. So let's say I want to find a particular one of my 95 schools if I'm Chandler Unified. Start typing some aspect of the name of that school. Again, I'm saying school, but remember the terminology of this app is related organization. But I can very easily find what it is that I'm looking for. If there's a multi-select feature here, select whatever you need to, and you can add that user. Here's the bulk user account creation. So I have my first user. I input the required information. I can then say add a row. I can add my second user, third user, fourth user, you name it. You can hit this with as many users as you want to add simultaneously. The one thing I'd keep in mind here is you're going to add them to each of the entities that you select here. So really, I'd look at this as I'm adding a number of district office personnel at the parent entity level. Let me go ahead and plug all of them in at once. I'm adding a number of teachers, all of whom are at Anna Marie Jacobson Elementary School. Let me go ahead and add all of those users at once. So there's some ways that you can be strategic. Our quick reference guides walk through all of that. Point being, going back to the high-level overview of this app, you can add as many users as you want to wherever you want to add them, and it's all this one simple process on this add users screen. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. I talk really fast. I don't think any of you have ever been in the room before when I talk. And I don't breathe, which is also something that's unique while I'm talking. I just breathed right there. That was a nice pause. I needed it, I think. So the next thing that I can do in this app is now I want to edit a specific user. And so in this case, I want to pick user 1 app claims, which is obviously not a real person, but I'm going to click edit. Again, I'm doing it from my user management page. Next slide is going to show me what happens when I open up this particular user. And then here we are. This is the edit user screen. You'll notice a lot of the different screens look very similar, but here is this particular user, and now for the screenshot, it's Donald Duck. There's very intuitive instructions. So it basically walks you through what do I need to do on this page. This is actually a new concept, and so you'll see these, we call them iText, but you can think about them as tooltips. So if I hover over something, it's going to offer me some kind of explanation about what is this thing, especially if it's a foreign term, or how I might go about using something. But here I am, I'm looking at my single user in this case. You can see I have a number of application roles. We provided you some filtering. So on any of the pages in the application, if you want to find, and we were really deliberate about the filters that we gave you, but we want to find a particular set of application roles. So let me go ahead and filter for a particular application. I know those are the roles I want. Go ahead and use those filters. You can see here that you can search for a particular application name. And so let's say I want to find achievement, and I know it's called achievement. That's the role that I'm after. I'll just start typing in some aspect of the role name. It'll bring it up for me. I don't have it shown here in this slide deck, but anywhere that you see, essentially it looks like it's clickable. It is a hyperlink. If you click it, it's going to open up more information. So we tried to be as deliberate with giving you any type of information that you would possibly need to make your life easier, just embedded within the application. And then it's as simple for this user as select which roles you want to add. There's a submit button that doesn't appear here on the screen. You click submit. It's as easy as that. If I want to go ahead and just remove this user entirely, here's this remove user button. I can do that as well. If I want to update any aspect of this user's information, I can do so. That's all going to be controlled from this submit button. Anything I do on the screen, once you're done, hit submit. It's saved for that user. Again, let me stress the fact that it's going to be a real-time update. So if I'm Donald Duck and I'm in Chandler Unified School District and I need to get that achievement role, as soon as you hit submit after you've selected that achievement role, I will immediately have that role. If it's a one-time thing, so let's say I have to perform some specific operation and then you need to take the role away, you could do that too. So imagine that's the possibility of the real-time updates.
Hang on one second.
Yeah, please.
Susan says, wow, much better design. Thank you, so much easier.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. I
Yes.
was waiting for like a hard-hitting question, but thank you.
Lisa answered it. No problem.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, that's great. All right, so then next slide. I will tell you that the WOW, again, the WOW goes back to the team of people here at ADE who built this thing. So I know a lot of you know them. A lot of feel free to reach out to them and let them know how impressed you are, because they're the ones who really spent the time working on this. But again, I'm honored to be here receiving that. I'll pass that back on to the people who built it.
I need to pause you 1 second for technical reasons.
I can hang out.
Someone in the roadmap for this?
So this is actually in Azure.
Okay, so we can use Office 365 logins for this? So we just put Azure, and Azure, it lets, they have a plugin that Microsoft developed that integrates their system that lets us use
Howard, are you not using those accounts right now?
What do you mean?
I'm still trying to understand the question here.
So, I don't play with the system, this is a different department that handles this. But as around our initiative, we're working with all of our systems to use our Active Directory accounts. And I was curious if their ADFS or Office 365 Azure ADE integration was on the roadmap for this. So to use that instead of local accounts.
So whatever accounts that you have, that they have access to our system, they are, let us say, if they are not self-registered, for example, right? They come through local account kind of scenario. Whereas your Active Directory accounts, if at all you are on Active Directory, they're all federated. So my question to you is, your users are able to authenticate and have been authorized to use the applications, correct?
What do you mean? I'm sorry. Oh, a third-party application?
Yeah, so whatever user base you have, they are currently accessing the system, correct?
I guess if we were, yes, I'm 90% positive. I don't use the system, it's a different department that handles the ADE stuff.
Right, which means that they're obviously getting federated. They are under our ADFS path to get authenticated and get user access to the systems that we built, and they were authorized to.
So you guys say this already does support ADFS?
Yes.
So I can integrate this in my ADFS environment? is what you're
Yes,
saying. Oh,
yes.
that's awesome. I did not know that. I'll
Right.
connect that to me and have it.
And the second question that you asked is, our previous entity administration portal was not sitting on Azure, whereas this is going to be hosted on Azure. It should be material to you, because whatever we're providing, irrespective of where we host it, you should be all right.
Yeah, so ADFS is this, I know that support it, so that's fantastic. We're working on it implemented. But the Azure AD integration, it seems to be some new feature of things that are hosted in Azure. I'm not super familiar with that. I just have been working with other vendors that are deploying software in Azure, and there's a way to do native integration with the Azure's AD. That would be really cool. That's all. I was just curious. That's not a big deal. But I'll definitely look at the ADFS stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, for us it doesn't or shouldn't matter, because you are treated as an external party coming in through ADFS for us. However, we are not on Azure AD yet, but our user base, like the self-sign-on users, will eventually get through Azure AD at some point of time when we go live with our Azure.
Okay.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you. So reach out to support too.
Yeah, it could be more than likely your sys is the one that's actually handling your the integration between like your sys handles the login, and then they click a link within your sys that automatically logs them into ADE Connect. You're just managing the roles within and creating the account here, but they're signing in on your sys, and it automatically authenticates them in there. That's usually how most systems have it set up.
Okay, that would make sense. Thank you.
That is absolutely true, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, but I have a question too. So speaking on the security side, right, we also do single sign-up for almost all our applications, and coming through the SIS, it's ideal because when we, disable a user in AD, they can't log in any of our systems, our door locks change, everything goes off. And so we were like, oh, awesome. With ADE, it'll be the same, except what happened, what we found is we had end users that say, for whatever reason, at one point there was an upgrade, say to Synergy, and it kind of broke our whole federated login. We got it fixed within a day or two, but unbeknownst to me, in the meantime, one of the admin assistants had called ADE and they gave them a totally external user ID and password. So the problem with that I see is that's bypassing too the general security, because that person maybe doesn't even work for us anymore, and let's say that would be an account that somehow orphaned or did not get deleted, because we depend on the deletes happening with our own scripts internally, right? We run our disable script and it removes a person, removes them from their thing, puts them in purgatory, gets rid of. We have a whole series of systems it touches, but ADE Connect it doesn't. So my hope was, well, if they have to go through the SIS, first, they have to be inside of our network. Second, or VPN. Second, they're not going to be able to get to ADE. And then I was like, what? Oh, you called me, gave me another ID. So that's a huge security issue. Is there a way we can lock that up and not allow users to do that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Can I answer it in terms of the app, or do you want to take a shot at it first?
I'll take a shot at it first, because ADE cannot give an account.
No, but they can give them an external user ID
Exactly.
and password. So that's what I'm talking about. And I realize it's our responsibility to put in our checklist to then hit ADE as a third party, but we also have built into our process that Active Directory is our main system. So if in fact we force them to authenticate through our SIS, there should be some way ADE closes that door where they're only using federated and they aren't allowed to externally log into ADE.
So here's how.
You see what
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
okay.
I don't know if that's.
Okay.
Do you have a camera?
So, yeah.
Do you know what I'm
And it will help, Satish, because part of your conversation is dropping off online. So if you're closer to the,
Yeah. Very trick question, right? There is no simple answer for that. Our self-registration allows anybody to sign up and utilize services that we provide. For example, we have some event that is going on, for example, right? A non-school user or non-district associated user as an individual can get in. So there is no way for us to know that they are associated with a school or district. So it is a very challenging question, and sometimes I get these calls from our human resources to find out that, hey, such and such user used to work somewhere, but they're not working at the school district, so do you, so we would like to disable the account. So like, no, it is not our call. It is the user's call specifically. We cannot do anything. However, in the example that you talked about, wherein there was an issue, and this user called ADE, and ADE directed them to create a self-sign-on account. I'm surprised.
They already had an account. They just helped them reset their password to log into the portal directly, as opposed to going through our SIS. Does that make sense?
It does, but my question specifically is, in order for them to go to the school's, whatever, I don't want to call them property, but the application, entity administrator should, at your school or district, should have authorized that self-sign-on account to be part of it. So I'm little, can we?
But I think what she's saying is that, okay, if I'm a user and I have an account with certain rights, and for some reason today my SIS will not let me sign on. I think the example she's giving is I call ADE, ADE says, oh, no problem, I'll reset your password. Now the password that I have is a local password to the system, not the one, it's not passing their credentials for my SIS.
Which
Yeah,
solution
they're
would be
bypassing our
helping
SIS
them?
completely.
What I see happening would be like, I call in from the district with my regular account, it's got problems, I give them my Yahoo account. And ADE sets that in with the role. That's what I think they're concerned of.
I don't think ADE should.
No.
Yeah. So let me weigh in really quickly, because I don't think we're gonna. So we knew that was a concern in the field. We did try to build in as much of a security precaution as we could, still minding that ADE does not want to take responsibility for if an entity administrator said that this user should have rights to some number of ADE applications, and the way that they did that was by assigning those ADE Connect application roles. then ADE does not want to have to step in and enforce should this user have access or not have access. However, what we built into this app, and actually if you take a step back a slide, this is not a fail-safe by any means, but I do want to just call attention to this. So one security precaution is when you are configuring a user, if you check off that this person is a CIS user, let me say that ADE, this application, is not going to validate that this person is a CIS user, but what this means is typically when a user account is created or an application role is applied or assigned to a user, the user actually gets a communication in the form of an email that says, hey, congratulations, you can now log in, and it actually provides the external login access that you're describing. We do not, this application and the databases that it sits on will not send those notification emails if the CIS user field is selected for a user. So at least the application itself, by the act of assigning a user or creating a user or assigning application roles, will not generate that external email. So at least one step would be, currently, one thing that we did hear from ADE administrators was, and let me kind of spin it a separate way, it wasn't really for security reasons, but the feedback that we got was it is confusing for our users because we want them to log in through our CIS for all of the great reasons that you identified. But they get this other email and then they try logging in that way. Can you not let them know that there's a separate login? So at least your actions in this application are not going to, so in your case, I would say for each of your users, make sure that the CIS user field is checked. None of those communications will go to that user. So that's step one. Step two is our support team is going to have access to this application. They'll have knowledge that if they look up a user, they can say, well, I can tell by the user changelog isn't on the screen, but I can see that, so Julie, right? So I can see Julie assign this user a role, but also flag this user as a CIS user, and then maybe one of the things that we can then talk about would be, so what would the ADE support team do with that information if the user is calling directly and saying, hey, I need to get into some application. What can you do for me? At least I would say we've now created the ability for you to indicate, my preference is this user only comes in through our CIS and does not receive any of those communications about that external login. So at least we've thought through that far, if that makes sense.
We were confused because originally when it moved to the whole federated piece, you basically, they told us at some point, you're not going to have the other backdoor option, you're going to have to go through your CIS. And we had called in, I don't know if that was in version 1, or we had made that relationship to where their users could not get, like they couldn't get in the other way or whatever. If they called, they were redirected. And then when this user did that, it caught everybody off guard because we were like, no, we're federated. You're not even allowed to log. No, it's on, or definitely we could. And so, we can add that back into our process as to when we disable our users. We also go in and disable from here. But it was really nice originally because they couldn't get in any other way, and that sort of locked them down a lot better.
Yeah.
It was a lot more effective.
Is there a reason for having that? Like in all of our systems, we have, Active Directory, we don't have another account to all the systems, it's the one account.
Yeah, but I think it's also for the exact reason that you mentioned. So you've authorized this person to have access to these applications. It just happens that in your LEA, you're managing that through your federated CIS. However, it doesn't mean that we want to prevent access to those applications that the entity administrator has authorized for that user. So that's really why ADE support in this particular case said, I see that this user does have authorization to access those applications. I see that there is an account created specifically for this eventuality. I need to get into something, but my CIS isn't allowing me in right now. So, I mean, I would say if we could take offline would be the extra conversation around, is that the best way to handle that? But at least I can say that's how this app is going to help make your life easier today.
So I've got another question. It's a little bit unrelated, but it could help with this in the future. Is there currently, or is there plans to develop an API for ADE administration? So that we, sometime in the future, possibly, if our vendors want to, manage all this from our CIS and assign those roles and do all that process.
So
How do we take care of that issue?
Previously, we had the capability of assigning roles, and I think we kind of with the admin role, the school admin role, and the teacher role. So my question is why was that limited at those roles? Why couldn't we add the additional roles that you guys have now granted? Because then we can manage it all through our SIS and not have to go through this whole separate system. But this is a great system. I like the new that SIS user option. Great. But
Yeah,
you know, there's some additional options that it gives us the
Sure, help us
capability.
with security.
Absolutely.
They wanna make sure
I
accounts are
would
shut.
take that as a how do I say, a backlog item for us. We need to have further discussion. I'll give you an example. You might call a specific role, with a specific name, but some other district might call the same role, like the type of the role as with a different name. It's kind of duplication. It's managing internally will also become cumbersome. So we need to come up with a process in which we have a common standard on how we name things and stuff like that. But exposing it through API is something that we should put on our roadmap, and then I want to go back to your point. If it is a federated user, we don't authenticate. That is not our responsibility. If that authentication falls on your plate. Authorization is the only thing that we do. But if it is a self-created, self-registered user, authentication falls on us. But still, someone who is acting as an entity admin will provide the rights of authorization.
So can I have you clarify that for me? So if I have a person who has roles assigned in ADE Connect, and for some reason our SIS is down today, they cannot call you and get another way into the system.
They should not, because we are not authenticating, because they belong to your Active Directory or your.
Because that's what I understand, like,
That's
what she
what's
was saying
happening.
is
They
happening.
have their own
That's
password now.
absolutely happening. It happened with like several.
Because they can go to that external URL.
I will.
But then in that particular case, we are authenticating because we are authenticating against that user account that does actually exist.
Exactly. So it's like both ways. Like I totally get our responsibility and that we can add that to our checklist of, but originally when the software was put, or when this portal was put out, it was an option that you could disable. They even told us, once you go federated and this is in place, you're not going back to the old way to log in. So we all assumed we're federated, we're good to go. And then that caught us by surprise. So in fact, they do, once the account's there, the support group will in fact allow someone to log in through the traditional way and bypass our system entirely.
Yeah, I'll take that example if I can get more information about it, then I'll take
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Take
of
it
course.
easy. Okay?
So I'm going to ask for 30 more seconds, but I know that that may not be the. Can I show 2 more things?
30 seconds.
Okay,
Let's
please.
start.
All right, so if you very quickly, so the last 2 things, so because we've gotten so much feedback, I'm not sure how much we've gotten back online, but we really want to open this up to all entity administrators. So this is just to show you the bulk adding roles, but let's go past this. Built into the application, one more slide, is this. So you can see you'd access here the global nav bar. We're looking for specific kinds of feedback. We wanted to roll out a first version of this application. If we're lucky, it meets everybody's needs and it's just fantastic. But we do want to collect your feedback, so please do so through the application. If you could let other entity administrators know, that's why it's there. And thank you. Now I will exit and it's all yours. Thank you.
And before Alexa starts, if there are more questions around this area, we would be here after Alexis is done, and we'll continue the discussion. Okay? Thank you.
Hello. How's everyone doing? You guys are really in good conversation, so I'm sorry I'll pop in just to give a quick legislative update. My name is Alexis Sustorf. I work here at the department on our policy and communications team. So I have the lucky pleasure of being down at the legislature quite often, playing a lot of defense on some of the stuff going through, and also playing offense for some of the good stuff. So I think that you guys have this page in your packets, and we just selected, there's obviously quite a bit of bills going through, but we selected some things that I think might interest you all.
Alexis, we will provide this packet when we send a follow-up email.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, so real quick, I'll just go through a couple things going through. There is several bills changing the way that we will calculate ADM at the district level, and one is pertaining to concurrent coursework. So schools that have students that go to community college and accepts the community college as credit towards their ADM count. So this came about from an audit finding of a school who was not calculating ADM correctly, and they felt as though having a student at a community college level taking courses and not only getting district credit but also community college credit should be the essence of our state. So they made some modifications, and now assuming this legislation will go through, a student attending a community college course can if the community college course is 3 semester hours, regardless if it meets for the 123 hours as statute requires, that will be accepted towards credit towards the ADM count. So that will be a change. Definitely, I think a positive change. The department signed in support of this one because we do want to see our high school students getting that credit towards higher education. 2385 is a bill going through that will most of the changes will take effect in fiscal year 2021, and really the essence of that one is just they want to see school district level accounting and budgeting. And the big theory behind this is having principals more involved in the accounting and determination of the district budget. They think that monies will be spent better than having it done at the district level. So that one really won't take effect till 2021. It does have some changes to the school report cards, what will be included on the school report cards. But this will, it's still early, and we at the department will be working with the Auditor General to provide communications, and that will be something that you guys will expect. Again, 2021, so there is time, but wanted to put it on your radar. Let's see, 2389 is a pretty simple bill. It's just requiring governmental entities to accept diplomas and transcripts pretty universally, and this one came about from a lot of homeschool children's transcripts weren't being treated the same as someone at a traditional district level. So the representative wanted to make sure that governmental entities, whether it be a school, a college, an employer at the state level, accepts their transcripts and their diploma as they would accept somebody at a district who came and got the traditional education pathway through a public or charter school. 2395, illegal substances notification. That is just some additional reporting that schools can expect, and just reporting through suspensions and expulsions annually on drug-related offenses. And that one really has stemmed from the recent marijuana legislation. They really want to see the impact that if that does pass in the future, the impact that could have on suspensions and expulsions in school. So I think that they're just trying to start tracking that now, so if this does come to fruition in the future, that they'll have an idea of if problems with suspensions and expulsions of schools have escalated. And honestly, I think it's just a talking point that they'll try to have if the marijuana legislation moves forward in the future. Additional reporting for schools, it will be an annual report. Us at the department, we haven't thought too far about how we would do this, but our thought is to have it be done in a survey or something that we already require of schools, to just kind of add a line in there that would require them to report this to us. Special education cost study, Senate Bill 1037. That is just trying to get some information about where our special education funding is going. I mean, we give it to the district level, and they want to make sure that it's going to the kid, that specific kid for those specific needs. And I think ultimately the goal with that one is to see if we need to redo our school finance to maybe redistribute monies in certain special education categories. And that may impact some schools. They're going to do like a small sample size. It's my understanding they're going to do between 30 and 60 schools. But the positive is there is money attached, so any administrative burden, if your school was selected, there will be some costs associated. We'll provide money to offset any administrative burden that you would have to deal with if that legislation passes and your district was chosen for that cost study. Senate Bill 1098, I don't know how much you guys follow the legislature, but last year the menu of assessments passed, and this was a requirement of the state board to expand our statewide assessment beyond just AZ merit. So they've been working the last year, and there's been a lot of issues at the board being able to actually find any of these tests that would align to AZ merit and align to our standards. So they made just some clarifications and expanded the timeline. It was supposed to be taking effect, I think, in April, but they moved it out a year. So the menu of assessments for high schools would be taking effect in fiscal year 19, and then K through 8 in fiscal year 20, and that will be available to districts. Originally the language was written to A, B, and C districts, but now they also open this up so any district would be able to take advantage of any of the tests on the menu of assessments that the board adopts. Senate Bill 1099, the school safety program. That one is a grant program, and there was some administrative changes. There was a lot of issues with this one moving through. The school safety program, basically the department funds a school resource or juvenile probation officer on campus. And there were some changes to the program. They originally thought that they wanted to have this be a program focused on high incident areas, and that was a huge, huge concern of the field. So they did officially remove this yesterday, and now the only change to the program is just going to be the department used to go to an oversight committee to get approval on the grants for the schools, and now we will be going to the State Board of Education. And also there's, as always, there's additional reporting requirements on anyone who opts to participate in that program. But again, our thought is to have it be done through a survey. Senate Bill 1131 makes some changes to the K-3 reading program, the Move On When Reading money that your school receives. Big changes, there was quite a bit, all positive changes for the most part. This one did pass and was signed by the governor, so this one will take effect probably in August-ish. But it did expand. One thing that the schools are really excited about is it expanded the exemptions for third graders. So now third graders, there's a list in statute, but now schools will be able to accept a test that's determined by the State Board of Education. If the student doesn't pass AZ merit and maybe it was a bad day for them, they will now be able to test the student on or use maybe past tests the student has used on some nationally or norm reference test and show that the student is able to move on to the 4th grade. That just was flexibility that came definitely straight from the teachers that wanted to see that. I mean, it's a high stakes test at 3rd grade, and we all know that 3rd grade students might have a bad day, and that could mean them not moving on to the next grade. So that was a really good change. One change that the field has had a little bit of rumbling with, but seems to be okay, is they moved the test window for AZ merit. So it used to be 6 weeks. They now put it in statute that the test window for AZ merit will be 4 weeks. But they did specify that the test results for the reading portion must be received by May 15th, and the remainder of the AZ merit test will have to be received by May 25th, which I think a lot of districts are happy with, to know that they get those results before summer, because you know there's been some hang up in the past of getting those results on time. There are years, say standard setting years, or say we adopt a new assessment, that may delay that, but that was added in statute. So although that's solid for now, there will be communication if that ever changes, because we're changing the standards or adopting a new test. Senate Bill 1136 just requires students in grades 4 through 12 to receive 1 hour of computer coding instruction. This can be done through an online platform. Some schools had problems. It might be a bit of an unfunded mandate, but there is a couple online providers that apparently offer this for free. So that's kind of fizzled, and the thought there is to maybe spark students' interest of coding, which we all know that we definitely could bring more people to the field in the future. So Senate Bill 1156 changes the way that high schools are able to count ADM. So current statute requires 4 subjects, and a subject must meet at least 123 hours, but they must receive this instructional time for 720. So the hang up was the 492 and the 720 where are those? Why don't they align? So this bill is allowing any high school to count any hours within the regular school day as towards their ADM. So technically, you would have to meet 4 subjects for 123 hours, and then the 228 could be filled as they see fit. Us at the department, we have a lot of issues with that, just because we want to make sure that students are receiving adequate instructional time, and this may lessen student achievement. We are working, the thought of this is really to be surrounded for the high school level students who, the seniors who might be able to take the half day, which we understand. We don't want a school to be penalized because their students are on a faster track to graduate than others. So I think we were opposed to this legislation just because there was a significant fiscal impact and a lot of negative implications that I don't think the sponsor thought about. But if we're able to narrow it down to that language for high school seniors, I know that we will be on board, and we're working on that.
Which bill was that one?
This one is Senate Bill 1156.
Thank you.
Does that eliminate lunchtime then? And the 7-minute passing time, is that?
So that's our concern is with this legislation, they would be able to count the passing periods, lunchtime, study hall, detention, anything within the regular school day as instructional time to fill that other 228 hours to meet the 720, which I think for the most part, schools aren't really going to take advantage of that. They want to serve their students the best that they can, but there could be negative implications such as that. And also there's retroactivity added to this. This really came from an audit finding that one district didn't like, and they wanted to fix it. So our thought also at the department is we shouldn't change the law and make it retroactive to clear an audit finding. That's not good policy. So I mean, we have an audit team for a reason. They oftentimes are seen as bad news, but honestly their role is to educate, to find disparities, and to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable. So that's one, I hope that we're able to come to a middle ground, and I think the high school seniors is really who's the most impacted by this, and so I think that we will get there, but it's been a rough road for that one. And that bill has changed significantly along the way as well. So this is the current version, but I don't know where the next version is going to be. So let's see, 1178 requires the districts to report annually their inflation and Prop 123 money. There is a lot, and I think you guys could probably echo a lot of concerns from the field about this one. Number one concern is Prop 123 was never ever put out there for strings attached. And although it was marketed by some politicians that it was for teacher salaries, and unfortunately, I think for the most part it was, but in some circumstances schools were in binds where they had to pay for other stuff, or their thought was to reduce class sizes, but that's the whole thing about Prop 123. It was local control, and we love that. So for now, for them to maybe look at reporting and try to see where this money went, that's not why the bill went through. And it's not just the department that has those thoughts. It was echoed in committee and through the field. I will be honest, there was a similar bill that was offered actually yesterday, and that bill died, so I'm not sure how much farther this one will go. But again, it's just additional reporting that the field could expect if it does go through.
Is there any talks of legal pushback on that, since that was basically settled or suit, and now they're adding different attachments to it?
I haven't heard anything that was definitely an argument that has been made, but I have not heard anything. And like I said, with that legislation, that was an argument made, as well as everything that I just said. That, you know, although schools would love to put all their Prop 123 money into teacher pay, I think that's pretty universal. The reality is there's so many other factors that schools face. So they were just trying to get by before. So it was a district determined where we put the money, and that's the best way to operate, because if we're gonna put it on one thing statewide, I mean, we all have different needs at, you know, different districts and different counties. So we liked that local control aspect of 123, and for now, for them to come back and say, oh, like, let's see the reporting, that's been a huge cry from the field, education organizations, you name it. So I'm not sure how much farther that will go along, just because it's a similar bill just died yesterday in committee, but you never know. Things aren't dead until the governor or the speakers hit the gavel and say we're done. So let's see, 1204, that's just for textbooks. There's just a couple requirements that there has to be a 60-day public comment period for textbooks, and also it has to be made available in the district office. And 1314 is some changes to student data privacy. That one is quite detailed, so you guys might have thoughts on that. But the big changes were the prohibition of operators to engage in targeted advertising, selling and renting student info, not only the operator themselves, but also there was an issue with third parties essentially doing this, so they made it very clear that third parties can't do this either. And using covered information of students unless they meet very specified circumstances, and also requiring districts to develop policies around this at the district level. Not that I think a lot of districts already have that, but we did originally, in the original version as the department, we were in support, but as more information came out, we did sign in opposed to that one. There is a very active lobbying group called the Mommy Lobby. I don't know if you guys know the Mommy Lobby, but they've been very vocal against this legislation. And really what they would like to see is more of a technology opt-in. So they would, as the parent, you opt your student into technology. Apparently there's some districts that are already doing this, so they want this to be just a mirrored option statewide. But that one has not moved for quite a while, so I'm not sure, but there's really no statutory anything about student data privacy, so we would really at the department love to see something, even if it's more general and leaving it the local control to determine all the rest of it. But we'll see where that one goes. The Mommy Lobby is opposed, we're opposed. There's very passionate views about that one. So. And then I don't know, real quick, 2 things going through IT funding. You guys probably have heard and seen. We are still working on that. Apparently the budget is, we had heard this week, but it's not. So our thought is the official budgets introduced from the legislature should be probably sometime next week. So we'll have an idea where we're at with IT funding. I don't know if you guys know about the email campaign. I know Sherilyn worked on the email campaign, but if you guys are ever interested in and understand, I think you guys understand the importance of IT money. So there's an email campaign on our website that you can email your legislators and let them know how important it is that we have IT funding so that we can provide these types of services to you guys. And then second budget ask that might interest you is a request for school report cards. We just want to build a report card system that is incredibly user-friendly and inviting to parents and the community, instead of a spreadsheet that if we don't get money to do that, we're gonna have a spreadsheet or a really boring-looking site. So that's another ask that we are optimistic. But we know this legislative session is a incredibly tight budget, so we will see. But our number one fight is the IT money, because we want to make sure that we can provide services and at least maintain the awesome system that we're building and continue to build. And that's really it. Did anyone have any questions?
There's an online question we go back to, and I apologize. And I'm not sure if I'm saying this right. She's not sure you're the right person to ask, but is there an update on EX1? You know what that is?
I
Yeah.
Okay, so Brent seems to know what this
No
is.
clue.
What is that a bill?
Is that the,
Do you
That's
know?
the absence.
The absence, so they put
all
10
the
excused
absences?
or
The
excused.
unexcused and excused absences.
Over over 10% of the.
Right.
Which would affect.
I have not heard anything. Are you asking, are you thinking that you had heard some sort of legislative
I
move
think that
towards
was
it?
more
It's a
of
school
a
finance.
guidance from school finance.
Okay.
It
Oh, it's
wasn't-
got, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
However, what
Okay.
about, there was something I heard on the news a while ago, I don't know where it went, how far along it might be, about requiring like an hour of recess per day.
Yes, the recess bill. That one has been quite lively conversation as well. It's surprising because people are very, very passionate about it, for good reasons. And so the original version did require, I think it was 50 minutes of recess, but it just passed in Senate Education Committee with a what they call a strike everything amendment. So they basically wipe all the original language out and put something new. And it's just saying that schools must require recess, schools K through 5 must require recess at least once. But there was committee testimony that they still don't think that's enough because schools will take advantage of the 20-minute lunch and then a 20-minute recess, and some of the legislators feel that that's not still enough. So there's talks that there will be an amendment to the bill again that will say that this additional recess, there's no specified time period, will have to be offered beyond the lunch recess that's already offered. So that, like I said, lots of lively committee testimony and very passionate people. The arguments for it, I mean, you know, mental health for students, there was a lot of students and parents there. Argument against it is
Instructional.
the time strap. I know you guys have bell schedules, and that will be hard to work into your already very tight schedule to make sure that you're meeting the students' academic needs beyond their physical needs. So we'll see where they meet. I think this suggestion beyond the lunch, without time provisions in it, could be really it's a good solution to meet both parties because there's no time period. So you could send the kids out for 10 minutes outside in the morning, but definitely know that schools are already very strapped for time, so this is seen a little bit as an unfunded mandate, but also the argument recess is important. And yes, is that it? That's easy.
Speaking of recess, time for break. We'll regroup in 10 minutes. And as I told everyone, restrooms are right opposite to the elevator, and there is a cafeteria in the first floor right next to the security. It's called Avanti Mart. We get soda.
But they have to have an escort to get back up.
Right, they only need 3 credits to graduate, and so it's 15.
Go.
All right, welcome back. So we're going to continue with our topics here. The next one is a quick ALIS update for you. And
Want me to click it?
oh, am I supposed to be
No,
clicking?
I was teasing.
So the topics I'm going to cover are the ALIS priorities, our current state, and future state. I'm going to talk about some of the highlights of some of the things we have accomplished. And also, I really wanted to talk about preparation for FY18. So, I think everyone is aware we're getting to the end of our fiscal year 2017. And I want to make sure we are in a good position as we start out the new fiscal year. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
And so I was doing 5 things. There we go.
So actually I'm going to talk about current state first. And
Is that the other slide? Or
Oh,
is it?
no, that's
It is,
okay.
it's all on here?
It's okay, yeah, right here.
I will stop clicking.
Okay. So current state. And I know there's a lot of detail going on this particular slide. And to a certain degree, it's intended to. So I know that as we've been going through the transition with AZEDs, and as we are trying to transition off of our legacy platforms, one, there's a lot of questions of why are we doing this? This is incredibly painful. And this slide is intended to help everyone connect with a little bit more as to why we're doing this. Our current environment is, honestly, it is fairly, I want to say chaotic, and that's probably not the best, but because we have these really old legacy platforms, one, each platform in and of themselves, because they're on technology that is no longer even the skill sets of our IT technology team members, they're way beyond the skill set that it actually takes to create these or to support these legacy platforms. So even just from an IT skill set perspective, we need to get off the platform. And the stability of these platforms are not ones that we will be able to sustain for much longer. They're not unsupported Microsoft platforms. So, so one, just the nature, how old the platforms are. In addition to that, the way that within the Department of Education, we have multiple applications that need student data, that require entity data, so information about districts and schools. And right now, each of the different program and application teams, they go directly out to these legacy applications to collect data. So we have all of these different points of retrieving data, and it's not in a central location. So as we're trying to move off these legacy applications, we have to go in and touch all of the applications that consume the data. We're taking the opportunity, I'm going to show it in the next slide, to actually clean some of that up. So right now, our current state, we have, in the case of our entities, we have our enterprise, which is the legacy tool. We also have OEMS. We still have school finance systems that are on legacy platforms. And within AZEDs, we have both SACE, which is still used and will be used for a couple more years for the 915 process. And then we also have AZEDs. And right now, though, what we do have, even though we have the old and the new systems, we now have all of that data flowing into our operational data store. We also have now, off of our operational data store, we have what's called a data mart. So it's a subset of that operational data, and that's what AZ-Dash uses today. So the benefit of doing that is, I don't want to use it. So let's say that we decide to change out one of these source systems in the future. We can change that source system out now, make sure the data gets into our operational data store, and the data will flow automatically down to the downstream applications. So we no longer have to worry about, if we do want to change a source system, all the different data points that are connecting into it. So we've really streamlined that for our future. So our next slide. As you can see, it's much cleaner. So our goal is to get to sunset our legacy apps. So we have one application for each of our major domains. So again, our student data, our entity data. We will also have our staff data, and we will have all of our assessment data flowing through to the operational data store. And from there, it will feed all of our downstream applications across the agency. So this is also that much easier for us to maintain and support. So just from an efficiency standpoint and a data quality. So just think about if you correct your data, if you corrected your data in the past, think of all of those downstream applications that needed to know that the data was corrected. Now all of those data corrections automatically flow through to all the applications that need that corrected data. All right?
Next.
Yes. So our priorities this year, we're really focused around making parts of that transition, not all of the transition, but at least to make strides in transitioning to our future state. So we focused on going live with AZEDs. We had the merge tool that we implemented within the AZEDs environment. The split tool, we are very close to going live with that tool, and that doesn't impact, how it impacts you is that if you have in a merge, within the merge tool, we have 2 different student IDs that that we identify as really being the same student, and we have to bring those IDs together. In a split situation, we do have some students, 2 students, that are actually sharing the same ID. And for that, we have to get all the records that are attached to that one ID, we have to break that into 2 IDs and making sure those transactions get to the correct student. So both tools are very important, because if you have a student that is either sharing an ID with someone else, or you need to consolidate 2 IDs into one, these tools were needed to be able to support you and your student data. We have been improving or working on the reconciliation with the SIS and AZEDs, and then throughout the year we have been taking your feedback and actually taking action to improve the end-to-end process, whether it's our communication, whether it's the tools, and we continue to try to improve the platform. So we've also enabling the decommissioning of the legacy systems. Our decommissioning approach has been to ensure that we have an alternative for all of those different application groups. We wanted to ensure that they have access to the data through the operational data store in order for us to retire their current connection to some of those older tools. And again, support and management. Okay, so for February, March, and actually now moving into April, these are the major, kind of our major highlights. We have a lot going on a regular basis, but these are the bigger items. So, so far in AZEDS, we did implement the student analysis tool. And what that student analysis tool does is it takes multiple reports that previously you had to go to. Now you can go into a single bit tool, and the link is there. If you log into the AZEDS portal, there's a tab for student analysis, and you can look up a student and start to see all the transactions related to that student. So the first phase was actually taking, I think, 7 reports and collapsing it so you can see it within the tool. And we will continue to add ADM details for the student, as well as any integrity errors that are specific to that student. So when we're done, by the end of this year, you'll have all of the transactions that are attached to a student all in a single view. We have the support program rules that went live, and just not this last weekend, the weekend before, we did go live with our Azure database migration, and we also updated the model of Azure that we're using for AZEDS. We have communicated this through our blog and also through the red flag, but I did want to take this opportunity to give you a quick update on our intermittent performance issues. We have been working with Microsoft, so we have multiple interactions going on with Microsoft on a daily basis. But a lot of times when you have these type intermittent performance issues, it's just continuing to kind of peel the layers and identify what is not the issue and continue to isolate it to where you think the issue could be. There have bin experts pulled in from Microsoft. It's an all hands on deck for our team, so our experts are there. Satish is there, Mark is there. It's a very serious situation for us to have performance issues within AZ. So we're working on it as diligently as we can, and we hope to get a little bit closer here in the next day or two. We've been able to isolate, what's going on in the database side, what's going on within our application tiers, and now we're exploring what's going on in the Azure environment and the networking between our different servers. So I believe we have the right team of resources that are working on it. It's in an escalated stage with Microsoft, and I'm hopeful we'll hear something in the next day or two. You want to add anything, Satish? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've been intimately involved as well.
We'll talk about what we did, but you will cover the Prime 10 and 15 later.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
I can cover it too. I didn't know. As Sherry was talking about constantly working with Microsoft on resolving the issue, but to get to the point of where how we got to this is, as Azure is evolving on daily basis, like what Azure used to be to what it is today is like exponential growth, and they are offering a lot of services which reduce a lot of how do I say our involvement in doing certain things such as monitoring and performance related enhancements and stuff like that. One of the things that we did recently was we took a leap to get to the premium disks on database servers. We were using standard hard drives, and based on the amount of input that we are getting, and there is a lot of requests for reporting here, right? A lot of people are asking for reports, and to improve their performance, we did several steps in the past. At one point of time, we did something called always on, which is the data that we receive is staying in a primary server and it is getting written into a different database simultaneously so that reporting performance doesn't take a hit. And to improve that even further, we went to this SSD model. Along with that, Azure came up with something called ARM, which there is a link, I believe, ARM model. We wanted to manage the entire resource group as a single unit to help us manage the whole infrastructure better. And Microsoft.
Go on.
Did we move forward?
I was saying sorry.
So Microsoft is working with us on helping resolve the problem that we have. We believe it is some sort of a configuration issue within the network on Azure. So Mark actually escalated it a couple of hours before we got into this meeting. And speaking of reporting, there are.
And I should say he escalated again. I think he's been on the picking up the phone every day.
Every
with
day,
Microsoft, so
every day.
It's constant.
It's constant, and it's getting level up, and every day he has been on the phone. And that's the first thing that he asked, did you call Microsoft, right? That's how he starts his day. And Sherry is going to cover more detail about the Trans 10 and 15, but a quick update on that is every submission that we receive, irrespective of whether it becomes successful or failure, we log it. The data has grown to 2 terabytes already since the beginning of AZs going live. And at one point of time, when there was an issue about it, pulling the reports, we looked at running one report. It produced 15,881 pages. I don't know who's going to look at that, but so we kind of and it's like 15,000 pages. I mean, just to scroll, it'll take half a day. So we kind of made a small tweak on it by saying that you cannot produce a report more than 3 days old or something like that. And we are at a point where we are even reducing the online availability of it while moving into an archival mechanism, which we will communicate with everyone, and there will be a blog post.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
Go
So,
ahead.
yeah, so what Satish is referencing, and this is literally, these are decisions that are being made over the last couple days, but we are, the Trans 10 and Trans 15 report, we will be restricting it to the last 30 days online. We do have the ability, and I want to make sure, because we will have the ability to get to additional days of beyond the 30 days, but from an online within that report, so when you go to do a request to pull those transactions back, it will be 30 days. And then if there would be a need to look up data beyond that, our Tier 2 team members will have access to that. What we still would be encouraging is that if there are issues that require that level of detail or rigor, that you do try to do it within that 30-day window, but we understand sometimes you may not realize there's an issue and have that need to go back and start looking at your transactional data. So, yeah, so if there is, if you do have any questions about that or want to talk to me about that in more detail, definitely let me know. Yeah, Cheryl.
We had an online question going back to the student analysis tool. It was
Yes.
They indicated that out of 10 searches they made, they didn't get consistent number of students, so it wasn't returning all the students they thought it should be. Is that a known issue, or would that be a contact Tier 2?
I would, so in the student analysis tool, are they saying when they go to try to look up a student, the number of students in the results? I would contact Tier 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Because after you get to your student, you're only looking at one student at a time within the tool. So I think what they're referring to is the actual student search, and that it's not coming up with a list of students that they would have expected in the search. That's what I think. But if they are having challenges, please do submit a ticket, and we'll look at that. I'm not aware of any known issues. So, okay.
So back on here.
All right, yeah, so back here, and our upcoming milestones, the merge tool moving, that is just a technical item for us. I talked about the split tool. That will be coming live or going live in April. And one of the things that we have been asked to do is to finalize the set of integrity rules for the year. It is something I have been working, you have no idea how hard I'm working on this, and the team is working on this. And I think finally I will be able to publish that list here in the next day or two, finally. Because we do understand, so at minimum we'll be publishing the list, giving you an idea of when any new integrity rules are going to be hitting and the types of rules that are out there. So again, within technology, we do not, we're just implementing rules that were requested to from the program areas, but at the end of the day, we're all one team and we do partner together. So I'll be sharing that list, and I would say if there are concerns with rules, we can, go back and talk to the respective groups and program areas. I am questioning every rule. And really making sure that there's business value. What's the value? Why do we need it? So I'm sure they get tired of me, but I want to make sure that we have a solid value behind things that we're asking you to do, and some of those data quality checks. So that's coming, and I'll talk a little bit about FY18 in a little bit. All right, and we have a number of things going on in ODS as well. We've been implementing data marts. We have been working on our October 1 enrollment. And eventually, I don't believe that you've ever had access. I gotta get moving. So October 1 enrollment is something, I don't believe you've ever had access to an October 1 enrollment report, at least through AZEDS, but eventually you will have that. So we're actually working on a report now. May not help us for this year, but we're getting it in place for next year. All right, next slide. Okay, preparing for FY18, we have the API 3.0. I think everyone is aware that this is coming. It will go live on July 1st. We have started UAT, so user acceptance testing. The initial user acceptance testing is at the API level, and then we will be adding integrity and aggregation by mid-April. Not all LEAs will be involved in UAT. I have asked each of the vendors to select an LEA to partner with to conduct user acceptance testing. One of the learnings that we've had is that we had our vendors go through a certification process, but we still had a number of challenges as we went live. So one of the thoughts is that by doing this user acceptance testing and true end-to-end testing, where you can see your data come in, you can see it run through integrity and aggregation, that we should feel more confident going into July 1st and a new version of our API. So, and then the other piece to that is I have asked the LEAs to actually sign off by June 16th for those that are conducting the user acceptance testing. So there is a little bit of thought behind that as well, and it was to make sure that we're actually making the changes, that we're ready, that we're not waiting for the last minute, rushing changes in and then all of a sudden have a bunch of issues. So that's meant we had to be ready on our side, so we, I pushed the team here to make sure we're ready, and then also making sure that we're monitoring it along the way. Okay, so the rollover process for FY18, more will be coming on that topic, but it will be, it will definitely be more streamlined than it was last year because we don't have SACE. So more coming there, and I will just briefly show you, we have outlined the new process, the new 915 process in AZEDS. And this last bullet, establishing a plan and process for rolling out new rules. So again, we're finalizing it for FY17, and for FY18, we will, I think what we will do is actually have rules released on a set interval, or so that you know approximately when the new rules are coming and which rules are coming, and so that you can plan for it. Another thought we've had is, instead of, for some of the rules, actually put the rule in production, but start it out as a warning or informational. So it gives you some time to get used to it before it actually becomes a failure. So those are just some of the ideas that we've been tossing around. If you have ideas of how that could be easier on you, definitely let me know or send them my way. Those are just some of the brainstorming ideas that we've had, because we have heard you. I do think that has been one of the pain points, is the new rules, or when new rules come out, a lot of times you're having to very quickly go in and address those data issues. Okay, so next slide. I'm going to skip past this. We talked about our schedule. And 915 is just really quickly. So there's a current process where that is currently managed within school finance, where there's a determination, or one of the districts has a need to submit a 915. That request goes into school finance. They review it. They either, approve or reject those requests. If they are approved, we will continue to support in SACE for FY15 and FY16. If it is for FY17, those changes now will come through the AZEDS REST API. Actually, after it comes in through the REST API, from your standpoint, it pretty much will look the same. We are building out some tools to make it easier for school finance, but from your perspective, you'll be submitting it through your SIS tool, and those transactions will come in. You'll have verification reports, and integrity and ACE will also be, those jobs will be run to determine if there are any integrity failures, and what the final result, if it is a change that impacts ADM.
That's it?
Yeah. That's it.
Next is Mylan Eden is going to talk about the broadband initiative and share updates. Good updates, right?
Yes.
Very good updates. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, Satish. Good afternoon. You guys are troopers hanging in here this long. Good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mylan Angel, State E-Rate Director. I do E-Rate. I'm the only E-Rate person in the state that takes care of all the schools. We have someone that takes care of libraries. That's Malo, the library office. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My phone rings 24 hours a day, and I usually answer it. So there's two basic pieces of E-rate. We have Category 1 services and Category 2 services. I'm going to address your question first. Where are you from?
Me, basis up.
From where?
Basis?
Basis? Okay. We have Category 1, which is our telecom. And that's what I'm really going to talk about today is our Category 1 opportunities that we've created here in the state. Firewalls covered in our Category 2. So at $150 per student over a 5-year term. So you can't get firewalls with E-rate money. You can't get spam filters or SIPA filters. SIPA filters being, does everybody know what a SIPA is? SIPA compliance? I see all the heads nodding. I noticed in the acceptable use policy, they talk somewhat about some acceptable use policies. SIPA is the Child Internet Protection Act, 1996, that says that we can't allow kids to go out and view pornography, extreme violence, extreme racism through our systems at school. If we have a one-to-one computing environment, that district school device still has to be filtered. SIPA filters are not covered with E-rate money. Okay. So Category 1, we're going to break it down into two pieces. We have our regular telecom, voice and internet connections. Voice is going away at the rate of 20% a year. This is the 3rd year, so if you were at 90% school before, you're now 30% school. So voice is going away as far as being able to pay for it. We'll know in another 2 years if the FCC decides to change that ruling and allow voice. It's kind of hard to run a school without having voice communications. So we want to get that back in the system. In 2015, the FCC's second order, they said that yes, you know what, high-speed internet is extremely important to schools. We have to have it. So, you want to next? Oh, that one didn't turn out very well, did it?
Sorry about that.
So high-speed access is extremely important. It's, you know, it's a staple of school life for most of our kids. So they're allowing the states to put in 10%. And if a state puts in 10% as far as building that infrastructure to a site, then we can get an extra 10% from the feds with E-rate, 10% of E-rate funds. If you are already an 80% school, the state can put in 10%, we get an extra 10%. So now we could actually do, in theory, $1 million build to a school in the Grand Canyon. And it costs the school district nothing. So we can build that infrastructure to provide those services for no cost to the district. This chart got kind of screwed up. Basically says that the FCC's recommendation is 1.5 megabits per student. I use 1 meg because it's easy math. If you have 100 kids, you need 100 meg of internet bandwidth. If you have 1,000, you need a gig. It's really simple. Next. I get a lot of questions from people that say, you know, I've heard that they denied so-and-so school because they asked for a gig and they only have 36 students. I got this email earlier this week. Yes, they will, because the recommended bandwidth is 1.5 meg per student. So if you've got 30 kids, ask for no more than 50 meg. Otherwise, they're going to deny your funding. With our 10% state match, this is the example. Cost $100,000 to build to your site, to build the infrastructure, to bring internet there. And that's our biggest problem in Arizona. We have, right now I have 187 sites that are taking advantage of this program. So as long as the state's putting in 10%, we're getting lots of money from the feds. A simple example. So next. We pitched it to the Corporation Commission, the Governor's Office, and anyone that would listen, that we need money. We need about $13 million of 10% matching funds in order to be able to build internet to every school in the state that needs it. Andy Tobin at the Corporation Commission said, yeah, why would we not do that? So we spent the last several months rewriting the, Arizona has a universal service fund, just like the federal E-rate program has a universal service fund. Arizona has the AUSF. We rewrote the rules so that we can actually get $8 million into that fund over the next 12 months. Typically, they collect about $800,000 a year, and it usually goes to one carrier, Frontier, up in northern Arizona, that takes care of lots of remote sites. So now we're going to get $8 million in this fund that we can use for our 10% match, which equates to about $130 million worth of infrastructure projects in the state for our schools. It's a huge opportunity for us. They voted and approved it 2 weeks ago. And this says April 16th. I was sending this to USAC for approval. I'm still waiting for the commissioners to sign it. They finished signing yesterday. They're going to review the final rule draft, and I go over this afternoon and sign it, and we send it off to USAC in the morning. They've already said they're going to approve it because we work with them writing these rules so that they would be compatible with the FCC's rules, so that our 10% match is going to be approved. Simple timeline. This year, E-rate closes on May 11th. We have hard deadlines with the feds. So if you want funding, it has to be submitted by April 13th, the request, the Form 470, and then you actually have to do your final submission of the 471 by May 11th. And this has some of the other stuff that we have to work on in the middle. You have to wait 28 days. You have to go through a bid evaluation process, document it. You have to call your records 10 years, all the fun stuff. For the schools wanting to participate in the broadband program, this is what they have to do. I know, it looks tough. It's really simple. Basically, you post your 470 with an RFP because odds are it's going to be over $100,000, and to meet state procurement rules, you have to have an RFP if it's going to be over 100 grand. You post it. You say, yes, I have valid vendors. You go through the bid evaluation process. You say, all right, I'm going to choose vendor X. You send me a request saying, I want to use vendor X. It's going to cost me $1 million to build to my school. So, Department of Ed, State of Arizona, can you give me $100,000? I send them a letter back saying, yes, you're approved for the state's 10% match. Then they submit their Form 471 to the feds saying, I have state match money. I'm applying for a build. Now, I'm advising everyone to go ahead and apply for your existing services at the same time. Because even if this is approved, this process is going to take anywhere from minimum of a year, maximum of 4 or 5 years. So don't think that you apply for it, you're approved, we approve you, the feds approve you. July 1st, you call your vendor and say, okay, I need gigabit to my school in Hackberry, Arizona. They're going to say, okay. And they create a project. That project for Hackberry, it's about a 30-mile fiber run, is going to be about 14 to 18 months. And you can't afford to be without internet for 14 to 18 months. So apply for your existing services as well as the new broadband. Does that make sense? That's what most people are missing right now. They're applying for the broadband thinking, I'm going to be covered. Well, they're missing out on the fact that they've still got to provide services. They've got to have the doors open at school from now until this stuff gets installed. E-rate resources, we have a website. As a matter of fact, it gets updated tonight with that flow chart you just saw. And some active links. A link to the RFP template, an example template. It has highlighted areas so that people that have never done an RFP before can download that Word document, go to the highlight spots, fill in the blanks, post it with your 470. We've made it as easy and painless as humanly possible. And then the state library folks have a website. Mala usually takes care of the libraries. We're including the libraries, charter schools, and public schools in this project. So we specifically wrote the rules to cover all education entities in the state. And then the state procurement office. Their website, if you know what you're looking for, you can find it. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you will look forever and never find it. If you know that you need contract number ADSPO 019, if you know that's what you're looking for, you can go there and pull that contract up. If you go say, yeah, I want to see the contract for level 3 communications, you'll never find it. Good luck to you.
But as I recall, you put some of those numbers or something up there for the big vendors on your website.
Yes, when you go to the azed.gov E-rate website and look at E-rate, there's two tabs basically. Look at E-rate, you'll see the state procurement, state approved procurement vendors on there with their state contract numbers. The other thing you need to know about state contract numbers, since we're talking about that, since I'm talking about it, is if you use state contract, you can get out of that contract in a year. If you sign a contract with a vendor, there is no way to get out of it without paying their ETL, early termination fee, which is basically the amount of your monthly service over the term of that contract agreement. Carrier contracts are very, very, very tough. You can't get out of them. So if you state contract, you can get out after 12 months.
All right.
Questions? Yes, sir.
I have one. So when you file your Form 471, do you indicate on that that you're requesting state match or you have state match?
Yes, you do. You actually have to check a box on there that says, I'm going to be using state match funds and it's approved.
Okay.
And you'll need the letter from us saying that your state match is approved.
What, so with the deadline of that being May 11th, how soon do you need that request to be able to have that approval in time to file?
As soon as possible, preferably. Right now, everyone is starting to file those 471s, especially for these projects, because they've had that RFP out there for 45 to 60 days. They've collected all the bids, they've evaluated, so now they've made the decision to go with the vendor, so now they're ready to start filing the second step. So all the schools that want to be involved have pretty much told me that they're there, so I'm monitoring them. I know when their 470s are. If they use an E-rate consultant, I talk to them about every 3 or 4 days, each one of them. So I know where they are. What district are you in?
All of you.
Yeah, and Agua Fria is on the list too. So that was another fight with the groups, within not the Corporation Commission, but some folks didn't want us to be able to cover urban. They only wanted to go for rural. Fact is, we have some urban schools in Arizona that don't have adequate access. So the rules actually include them. So for districts like you guys are in good shape. The rule, it's all been approved, so it's a matter of now going through the rest of the FCC paperwork. Yes, ma'am.
How does it define adequate coverage? Is it that you don't meet the recommended meg per kid that you can apply for the extra funding, or is it? We have
It
a school
depends.
in Oro Valley where there's only one carrier that reaches us, they can charge whatever the heck they want, they have a monopoly. So
Yes.
I'm sure if this would cover to where we could get competitive bids by having that.
Yes, it does.
Awesome.
You can actually, and if you ask for, you can ask for a dark fiber, lit fiber, or transport only services. So, but if you ask for one, you have to ask for all three on the RFP.
That's awesome.
So yes, you
If
can
we've
go out.
already filed already put out for bids for the rest of our coverage, can we still do this? while
Yes, you
we-
can.
Okay.
And you should do this separate because you don't want to miss out on your existing services still being covered. So those outrageous prices, yes, you can still, you should have already put your stuff in, your 470 for those.
We did.
Now, add another 470 with an RFP for a build to that site and ask for either a point-to-point lit fiber service, which is probably what you would want.
That's awesome, thank you.
It's part of your wide area network.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's great. It's great news. It's the best thing that we can do for Arizona schools and use somebody else's money to do it. $130 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. Any other questions? Thank you all again for sticking with us all afternoon.
This guy's a superstar. So and the last one is me, next slide. And I'll try to stand in front of you. I walk, so hard to stand in front. I'm not a guy that likes microphone podiums or things like that. I used to teach. And the way you get attention of a student is to walk right up on them and talk right to them, and they'll wake up. And this was college, so I can't imagine. First, second graders, I'd have to have coat hooks and hang them. And I know you can't do that.
Not anymore.
So that's why I wouldn't teach. I wouldn't teach elementary. Elementary teachers and middle school teachers I have a lot of respect for. Because my gosh, you must have the patience of an angel or a saint in order to take care of all that stuff. But let's quickly move through this. I had a question asked. The following discussion items: how should districts handle one-to-one student learning if net homework or other activities are conducted off-site, home or library? How does a student complete work when they don't have internet at home? Okay? Well, there's some implications to be considered. Now, understand that this is a local control state, so you're asking me a question. I'm going to give you what Mark Masterson feels. It doesn't mean it's absolute. It doesn't mean that it's what you have to do, because it's your job to protect the kids. Next slide. I'm going to go over the two ARSs. If you're not aware of them, you should be aware of them. 34502 is what I handed out to you. Can I borrow yours for a second? The key point that I want to share is the governing board of every school district shall prescribe policies, standards, and rules for the enforcement of this subsection. And what this subsection really is dealing with is the next slide. I know you want to go home. Is this kind of stuff, which is ARS 34501. Okay, so if that's the thrust of this question, the thing that you have as one-to-one, if you think digital is not here to stay, you haven't been paying attention to the world. Shopping centers are closing. Walmart has competition. They're going, Macy's is closing stores. Everybody's shutting down. That's because why? Amazon kicked their butt. Digital is, if anybody, UPS is worried about Amazon because they're now in the air. They call it Prime Air, and they have their planes painted Prime. So digital's here. You're going to learn digital. You're going to, and if you look at I know some of you have children, or you know somebody that has children. They live on this device. They live on. I see 3-year-olds are handed an iPad, and that's their entertainment. Whether that's good or bad is a decision between the parents and their kids. I just had my pediatrician tell me that no more than 2 hours screen time a day. Really? I think the pediatricians need to get real, because education's going digital. And why would that be? Because all the content, the richness, the changing, online testing results, you could get real-time feedback to the teacher, to the student, and the parent within minutes. And then you could deliver content. So digital's there, one-to-one is there. How do you protect yourself? Well, I recommend hardening the device. If you own the device, or as my compadre, my security officer reminded me, if you allow BYOD, I was going to say BYOB. It's getting almost sometime to have a beer. BYOD, bring your own device. You still have the right to put your software on that device if they use that device in the school. That's a decision your governing board would have to make. So if you're a governing board, if you're a district that has no governing board that's providing this guidance, what would Mark Masterson do? Mark Masterson would find the best district. Chandler's no longer here. Big district. I'm sure they have policies and they've done something like this. I would get theirs, run a draft, change it to fit your organization, run a draft through your board and say, what do you think? And then doctor it again and make it what the board would sign. Because you, as IT directors, CIOs, need protection. And if it's by law, you're supposed to protect. So you have to create a governance, and that's what governance means, is create governance around the devices that are used in your school. There's other ways, right? I'll use BASIS because I go there. They have student internet, but it's filtered internet, protecting the students from this. But they bring their own devices, but they're protected. Now, if the other question was, how do we deal with the problem of kids being able to do work at home? That's what Mylan was just talking about for the last 20 minutes before I stood up, is we need broadband in the communities at an affordable rate. I know that there's some communities up north and east of us that are talking maybe putting a tower on top of the school to broadcast safe internet into the local area that's wireless. That is an option. But it's safe internet. It's wireless, you secured it, and you're giving it to the kids so that they can't afford it. If you live, in a second, and come on up and stand on the side. If you live in urban, Cox offers deals like $10 a month for internet if you're, like Title I, free and reduced lunch type category. So, Mylan isn't going to cure the world's pain, but the fact that we don't have, broadband in some places is 56, I know I'm talking to a group of people who don't want, some of us understand. 56 kilobaud modem that goes, that was what I used to log on to and thought it was fast. Wow, I was moving fast. Really, I started working on 2400 baud modems, synchronous modems. So I know what speed slow is. But today, I pay $67 a month for a full gig Ethernet at home. Not everybody in our state gets that benefit. And Mylan's job is, and he wants to talk about something, is to get that. I hope I answered the person's question with that. It's really guide your governing board to give you policy. If you don't have policy, help them get it, right? You create it and have them sign off on it. Go ahead.
We have a vendor, actually I'm pushing 3 or 4 different vendors right now. One I'm meeting with at 6 o'clock tonight to actually make all the schools basically hotspots where they are rebroadcasting internet. The school's internet, which is filtered, it's compliant, rebroadcasting it to the community, and they're charging between $5 and $7 per home for that service.
Does the school have to pay for extra use?
No.
So they'll increase the bandwidth to the school so that they can do that.
That's right.
Would they provide a credit to help cover the cost of buying a more beefy content filter to handle the addition of concurrent connections?
It depends on.
What, I couldn't even understand that.
No.
I'm going to have to get my real technical hat on.
Yes. No, they won't.
Okay.
But
I think it's a great idea. It's just that
E-rate will.
our current
E-rate won't pay for content filters. No. But a content filter is, a 500 licensed content filter is about $900 a year.
Depends how much you got. Ours are expensive. They're
Are you
really
using
nice. We use iBoss.
websites?
We're using iBoss.
iBoss is like.
It's expensive, but it's amazing.
Which we have an online question to this. Are school districts responsible for providing filtering and monitoring internet when not on a school network because ARS 34-502 doesn't address this?
Federally, they are responsible.
But we own the device.
Yes. Federally, we're responsible for the Child Internet Protection Act of 1996.
Even if they're at home?
Yes, if it's a school device.
Okay.
If it's
You buy them a
you
device.
provided it for them, you're responsible for making sure that it's safe content.
Mm.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So network
If the
filtering
parent
wouldn't be
buys
enough.
the device, it's on the parent.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking at home. The other thing that was, that's interesting, is we do have a couple kids for special education programs in their IEP where they have to have a school provided device. And if they're taking that home, we are responsible for making sure that the content that they're accessing is safe.
Yep.
Well, you have to build it into
Yeah.
the device.
Yeah.
And there are some small applications that you can load.
And I have a gentleman back there that's an expert, if you want to ask Robert. He'd be able to tell you what's the best.
The thing we can do though, as school districts, is we can encourage our vendors to provide those services at those costs. This year, it's a big push to get the services to those people. Next year, we're going to be doing that, continuing that project, but we're also going to be challenging these vendors to say, okay,
Lower your price.
we're paying $60 a meg in some places in this state, which is, that's $6,000 for a 100 meg service.
Should be $9.
It should be $9, $10 a meg. So next year, once we have the infrastructure built, we can start forcing these guys to start charging reasonable prices. They've done it in other states and been successful. New Mexico is right next door, and they did it 2 years ago. We're going to start down that path too, and I've been talking with the vendors and letting them know, guys, $10 a meg is about the maximum you should be charging. And in the carrier world, they call it the race to zero. You notice you don't pay long distance anymore. You know, I call long distance every week, call my parents in Tennessee. No long distance charges anymore. It's zero. So it is the race to zero for the carriers. And they know it. They know that prices are getting less and they've got to provide more services.
Any questions? Because I know you, and I very much appreciate your long afternoon.
I have a question. You said at the beginning, and I missed the date, you said, because we've been talking about this for several years in the district about essentially providing hotspots for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say that is in this year's?
That is not what,
Or
we're
that
not
is
doing that.
coming?
I'm doing that as a side note with some of our vendors
Oh,
that
okay.
are capable of doing it, asking them to do it. And there's one district in the West Valley that they're testing it in right now. It's Saddle Mountain. So they're providing hotspots from the school to provide internet access for, I think, $7.50 a month per kid, for family, I
Where
should
they
say.
check it out? Is it like a cellular one, where they check it out to the family, and then the family has, or is
No,
it
they're actually putting,
hotspots?
it's actual
that-
hotspot
that-
from the school. He's putting in antennas on the school, a 360-degree antenna.
Oh, so it don't.
So that he
just
can
serves
service
that
it out
community.
just like a cell phone signal.
Right, yeah.
But please,
We've talked about that.
if you guys think of doing this, make sure you involve your managing boards and leaders. Please don't say, Mark Masterson left here and said, go ahead and do this. Because I started this conversation saying that I don't tell you what to do, local control. Now, since we're gonna wrap up, because traffic sucks in Phoenix, it already does right now. You notice we don't have a whole lot of people. There are 664 districts. So if you were me, what would you say? Is this worth it? I would need, you're here, so obviously you think it's worth it. Was today a good day for you as far as information?
I think you're running in on SLEO testing. I
Yeah.
keep saying that
AZ
you're running
merit.
into AZ merit. This is like, for some
And
districts,
AIMS.
it's our for
Yeah,
computerized
basis is AZ
testing.
merit this way.
It's like but it depends on your staff and your setup and all that, but
I
it
know
is
that.
our prep week, and it's a lot of prep and making sure everything is.
I know,
correct.
you're making sure your system's
Yeah,
up.
and we have 3,000 computer, so it's like, I think it's that kind of thing where this is a really bad
Okay.
week for IT. We're on the hot spot to make things work.
Well, I sure appreciate
I-
you giving me that feedback. Because now I'm not beating myself up saying, man, you all think I suck that bad. Nobody comes here.
Tolga Online says worth it.
Who is that?
One of our, Tolga.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Will, do you think this is, in person is better than with the optional dial-in? Is worth it? Once a quarter? And we should make sure our quarter is not during AZ Merit Week. So it's all of month of April, pretty much.
We have a vote saying streaming really helped them save in the travel and travel expenses.
So they felt this experience was good?
Yes.
We're getting lots of yeses.
And to keep the online forum part.
Okay. Well, this streaming is helpful. So I noticed when we did the monthly call-ins, that was like a flop too. So I'm trying to figure this out, because I really think we have a lot of knowledge here with the team I have. It's not more me. I have really good people working for me.
We're getting lots of thumbs
They
up.
could help you. So here's what your homework is. You need to tell us what you want to know about in the next ones. In the next quarter, we'll send out a follow-on to all districts. And hopefully you talk to your peers that are busy doing AZ Merit. And that is tough. Shoot myself in the head. This is the wrong week. Obviously, I'm IT at the Department of Education. I don't know that, but you did, so thank you.
We were fighting spring break too.
No, that was 2 weeks ago.
Well, lots of places.
So there, we got some really good feedback just now.
Yeah.
Streaming allowed me to call in different team members for different subjects.
I like
So
that.
people that are remote in their offices are bringing people in to hear parts of the information. So that's also very good.
So share with your peers, let's see if we can grow this. Where did I get this idea? State of Kentucky. In the state of Kentucky, the CIO deals with every district shows up. They're a little smaller than our little state. I get we're more rural, we're more size. Okay? But they have, in population, are about like us, right? They've got the same amount of population. They got urban and they got rural. So I thought this was really a good idea. That's why I wanted to do this. And if you're telling me you want me to continue to do this, then we will make sure we continue to do this because we want to help you. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the people who did the hard work. Lisa, Sherilyn and Patty and Emily. Without your work, we wouldn't even have been able to do this. So thank you for doing that. You want to say goodbye? Thank you.
If you want.
Thank you very much. We will be sending out posting the slide deck.
Yeah.
And this whole session was recorded, each video and audio, and that will be posted as well. If any one of your team members, if you think it would be worth watching for them, please share the link with them as well. And then as always, we welcome feedback. ADE Connect in the admin portal revamping was done because of the feedback that we received. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. Safe travels.